this session, we will be having 1 hour of discussions with our distinguished speakers and also with you as audience to talk about the legacy and next generation threats, the heartbleed, shell shock, and what's next. So Sony got hacked again. Bugs like heartbleed and shell shock have rocked the world with their high impact and widespread cyber destruction. Shaman, Dogo, Stuxnet, Flame, and other devastating exploits are still fresh in people's minds. In a world where the number of devices with internet protocol addresses are growing, building security has never been more challenging and of such paramount importance. Well-known programs, websites, networks, and servers may be highly secured, but there still are other vectors such as embedded systems, infected media, supply chain compromises, and social engineering, which can easily serve as malicious entry points. This session discusses such mediums, their challenges, and practical remedies to be prepared and defend your systems, networks, data, and entire cyber ecosystem. And doing so also proactively, reactively, and collectively. Some discussion points, inshallah ta'ala, that we are going to have include critical national infrastructure and SCADA systems, APT, supply chain, national level and zero-day attacks, DDoS, intrusion detection and prevention, covering enterprise devices and networks end-to-end, financial security and fraud protection or prevention. To talk about these points, we have our guest distinguished speakers, Mr. Eric Eifert, Senior Vice President, Cybersecurity Solutions at ManTech. Mr. Eric leads a highly technical team of over 250 cybersecurity experts committed to defending ManTech customers' critical information systems. Prior to joining ManTech, he was a special agent and computer crime investigator with the U.S. Air Force Office of Investigations, where he led a team of special agents conducting computer crime investigations and information operations throughout Europe, Africa, and Southwest Asia. Welcome, Eric. Our second speaker is Mr. Mamdouh Khawaji, Vice President Information Technology at Sidco Holding. Mr. Mamdouh has practical knowledge and experience of planning, developing and implementing cutting-edge IT and security solutions to address growing business needs. Prior to Sidco, he spent 7 years at IBM R&D facility in Toronto, Canada, where he was part of a global team that delivered WebSphere Commerce, the industry-leading B2B and B2C e-commerce platform. Our third speaker today is Mr. Ray Cavity, Vice President, Middle East, Turkey and Africa for FireEye. Mr. Ray is known for his extensive industry experience in broadband telecommunications, internet acceleration through caching appliances, internet and web content security networks, and application acceleration and optimization solutions. Mr. Ray, his past experience involves solid emphasis on information technology and telecommunications, including WAN and LAN solution internet security, and next generation cyber threat landscape and defenses. Please join me to welcome all of our speakers. Thank you. We will give each of our distinguished speakers about 6 minutes to talk about the topic of the session, and we'll start with you, Eric. So please go ahead.
Thank you. Well, thank you for inviting me today. It's a pleasure to be here to address this distinguished audience. Once again, my name is Eric Eifert, and for those of you that don't know ManTech, we are a large U.S. consulting firm that provides services globally. We just opened up an office here in Saudi Arabia, and so we're taking the services that we provide to the U.S. And other countries here to the Middle East. So look forward to doing more work within this great country. Some of the things that I focus on from the cybersecurity aspect, to give you kind of a perspective of where I see the threats coming from and evolving to, is around the services that we provide to our customers. And that involves security operations center support, where we actually run 24/7 operations to detect, analyze, and respond to security incidences that occur across our customer bases. We also develop cyber ranges, where we can actually emulate and test different configurations and really provide a scenario-driven training environment to help train cyber defenders against the latest and next generation threat. We also do a lot of security engineering, where we design, deploy, and maintain secure networks and architectures. We also provide a lot of incident response and forensic services to support our customers to actually respond to those incidences, whether it's a cyber intrusion or civil or criminal investigation. And finally, we actually do a lot of training to help train the next generation of cyber defenders defend against the next generation and evolving cyber threat. So it's a wonderful time to be in the cybersecurity industry, in my perspective, because every day is different. We have a variety of challenges that face us, both from the adversarial side as well as the technology side, but that makes it very exciting for me, because I get to go into work and tackle a new challenge, support a new customer, and help their evolving missions defend themselves. From the adversarial side of the coin, I think we're dealing with probably the most diverse adversarial landscape we've ever seen. We see a significant amount of what we consider advanced persistent threats, or what I would consider state-sponsored attacks that are focusing on economic and military espionage. We're also seeing global criminal organizations that are conducting fraud and economic crimes. We see hacktivist organizations that are actually leveraging cyber technology to either conduct denial of service attacks or somehow disrupt commerce or other activities from organizations they don't like. We also have terrorist organizations that are leveraging cyberspace for recruiting, fundraising, as well as conducting acts of terror against their adversaries. We also have your traditional hackers that are opportunistic and conduct data theft, as well as something as simple as defacing a website. So each of these organizations have different motivations, which makes it challenging to defend against, but all of them have access to very sophisticated tools and methodologies. So on the technology side of the coin, I think we now have probably the most diverse attack landscape that we've ever seen before also, which gives that diverse attack profile the ability to attack a lot of different things that we need to try to defend against. So we've probably been more interconnected than ever before, where organizations are now connected to both their partners, their suppliers, their vendors, and even their teleworkforce. We also see that with smartphones and tablets, that the mobile workforce and mobile society we live in is another attack landscape, with mobile security being affected. We've talked about the Internet of Things, and it's interesting. Back in the United States, we're seeing that time and time again, everything from automobile security, which is a big focus in Detroit, as well as home security with the smart home, whether it's your thermostat. Everything seems to be getting an internet IP address nowadays, and that is very interesting as it affects each individual person now, and that attackers can focus on an individual. We also see the industrial control systems and SCADA systems being targeted. It's interesting with some of our customers that run these industrial control systems that they do access it by the internet. And if not by the internet, there's other remote ways of accessing it through wireless connections or even through telephonic connections. So once again, there's a very large attack landscape that we need to protect against. So like I said, it's a very exciting time. In some cases, every customer challenge is unique and different, which makes it fun because every day is different and we get to focus on providing different solutions to those customers. We also have noticed that there's no single technology, software, tool that can solve these challenges. It really is a combination of both diverse technologies, well-established and documented policies and procedures, and a trained workforce that can bring all those things together to provide a comprehensive cybersecurity capability and environment for our customers. The problem that we've seen is there's a lot of challenges with this environment, whether it's budgetary cycles. We always talk about at work that we need to act at the speed of cyber. Well, that's a challenge if you have a budgetary process that every year you set aside your IT security budget to make certain improvements and investments, but 3 months into the year, something changes where you need to divert those funds to other more important priorities. And in some cases, organizations have a difficult time reallocating those funds to make those purchases. We've also seen that there's very complex infrastructures that have been built over time. So there's a challenge with trying to figure out how to integrate cybersecurity capabilities into this very heterogeneous environment that has been built up over many years. We also see sometimes there's some challenges with leadership in getting executive buy-in, both in understanding the threats as well as the risk profile that cybersecurity can play within an organization, and ensuring that the folks that are responsible have the proper authority and given control to make the necessary changes and recommendations. So I do see investments across a lot of different areas, both in the network and host-based security systems where you're protecting the perimeter as well as focusing on the end host. We are seeing some challenges, investments in virtualization and migration to the cloud. So that can create cost savings and efficiencies, but you also need to factor in how are you going to monitor that environment, how you're going to protect that environment, and include that as part of your capabilities within your organization. We also see another focus around risk, but it's even more than risk, where we call it EGRC. So it's the governance, risk, and compliance aspect of an organization. So not only do you want to focus on what affects your risk profile and how to mitigate those risks, but how do you ensure that your structure is being compliant with whatever agency or organization has oversight over you, and then what is your governance process to make sure that when you bring in new technology, you do it a part of a configuration management process that allows you to integrate that in a secure mechanism. In closing, I'd like to say that thank you all for attending this summit. I think it's summits like this and conferences like this that provide a forum for interaction and for you to learn about new techniques and new capabilities, as well as have that interactive discussion with each other to commiserate over the challenges and identify best practices and lessons learned from others that have experienced similar problems within their organization. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Eric. It was very informative indeed. And I think now it's Mahmoud's turn, so please go ahead.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum and good morning. I think I'll start with the company that had been mentioned several times already, Sony. So Sony and the attacks they had, and it also shows that the threat is not only coming from really advanced technology and attacking. It also comes, and most importantly, comes from the way that technology is being really used. Now, several years ago, or many years ago, you never think that you're going to find a product that can be hacked. So in case of Sony, what has been hacked, I'm talking about the entertainment incident, is actually the product, the movie. So sometime back, that thing could not really happen. So the more dependency and the more really utilization of the technology and digital technology in the companies, makes the threats and make the incidents even more severe. So the aggressive attacks that we have seen to actually go and damage the company and damage actually the impact the asset and even impact Sony financially was because the way that technology has evolved okay, to actually exploit the digital to the max, actually is actually becoming greater and greater. The mobile technology we have, stuff like that, this all things actually expose us more and more to more threats. So it's actually our utilization and the way we use technologies increases the threat from my point of view here. Dependency within the organization, also talk about IP telephony. Okay, in IP telephones, for example, in my from Jeddah, we have several companies that have been hacked through IP telephony. So our dependency, our usage of these technologies can get people actually to go and try to get into your companies and use the phones. We have companies that actually some hackers get into it and make international calls, okay, and actually cost the companies millions of reals. So this kind of evolvement and this kinds of usage of the IT makes it really us more prone for more problems. Someone he mentioned also the virtualization, the ease of actually deploying new services, the ease of new servers, make it easy for us to actually go ahead and do things without proper thinking about what kind of precautions we really should really have in our companies. So actually the ease of actually getting new services, the ease of deploying them, make it really, add lots of business pressure from all company, from the upper management to go ahead and deploy solutions very quickly without doing the proper right measures for security. In the past, the cycle for deploying solutions actually takes longer because actually you are waiting for the hardware, for example, to come. By the time it comes, you might really have a better planning and actually how the whole deployment will be. In these days, that can happen like that way, very quick by the use of the visualization also. The increase in the use of social media, WhatsApp, all of these things makes it actually easy for people to exploit the social engineering. Actually getting information from people to tell you more about their companies is actually a tactics being used to know more about companies' insiders and how can actually the hackers can get in. That's also a threat that's increasing due to the extreme utilization of the social media. In my company, for example, the way that really social media is impacting everything, an executive asks to actually open WhatsApp through the LAN of the company. So it's becoming that easy for such requests because the technology has become there and WhatsApp is becoming de facto way of communicating even in this conference too. So what I'm saying is the threats is increasing and it continues to increase as we're becoming more and more dependent on the technologies. Thank you.
Shukran. Third speaker, Mr. Ray, please.
Good morning. So I'm not going to use the podium. I think it's an inhibitor between the presenter and the audience. So allow me to be more close to you. So just a brief introduction. My name is Ray Cafferty, and I work for a company called FireEye. Just a brief introduction to FireEye before I get into the subject matter. FireEye is in the business of providing next generation solutions for next generation attacks, cyber attacks. And I will want to share with you a few statistics that makes the point quite loud and clear. In order for us, we are actually in a fight. We're actually in a war. There is the adversaries that are launching the offense, and there are companies, organizations, enterprises, government that are on the defense of cyber attacks. Now, for a solution, for a comprehensive solution to work, we have to inspect the mind of the attacker or the mind of the perpetrator that is trying to attack your network. And we will get into this threat landscape. So we have to understand what has changed from a cyber threat landscape point of view. And I will start with a few statistics. It has been shown through research that in any typical network, the cyber exploit or the cyber attack or the cyber malware or the cyber breach already exists in the majority of networks for up to 229 days. This is almost 7.5 months that a breach is already existing in your network before the IT administration or the security administration finds out about that breach in the company, which means the malware is already present in your network. The hackers have remote control on the network for up to 7 months, average, sometimes more, sometimes less, before an alert is up and the company or the victim takes action on it. Now, once they discover that there is a breach in the network, average, it takes 30 to 40 days before any company can deal with this attack. Deal with this attack means isolate the victim machines, take them out of the network, and do the necessary remediation to bring that endpoint back to a normal and a healthy state. So that's almost 8 months of opportunity for the adversaries to stay in your network and, create havoc and also project their malicious intent into your organization. Now, so this is the current state of affairs in the market as we know it today. Now, if you look into the minds of the new generation hackers and what are they intent to do, we found out that they have an average of 10 minutes to write an exploit, deliver it on a payload into your network, do their malicious intent and objective, get what they want from your organization, and get out. An average of 10 minutes. So if the current state of affairs shows 8 months leeway or time frame, whereas current hackers and current cyber criminals are using less than 10 minutes to do their launch payload and do their cyber attack and then get out, that means the old model is not fit for the new model, which means we have to change our thinking and we have to change our methodology, we have to change our technology to be able to deal with how do we alert, how can I alert and fix and remediate my network in less than 10 minutes. So that's a tall order. And that's really the objective or the mission or the vision of FireEye. FireEye was formed for the sole purpose of providing next generation cyber security solutions that enable security administrators to deploy those solutions to alert and fix the cyber attack in less than 10 minutes. Now, the cyber attacker is depending on legacy solutions, legacy security solutions in the market today. The legacy security solutions in the market today says that, I am going to provide a signature-based solution, maybe on my firewall, maybe in my IPS, maybe in my web security gateway. And if an attack comes in from outside, and I have a signature that matches that attack or that breach or that malware, then by all means, I can identify that attack and I can do and develop measures to block that attack. However, zero-day attacks and advanced persistent targeted threats, so-called APTs, 99% of the time are signature-less. They are zero-day, which means they are just very brand new, and they don't have a signature. Most of the signatures that are being placed on security solutions nowadays are for known attacks or known cyber breaches. But for the new emerging cyber attackers, there is no signatures for such zero-day attacks. And therefore, attackers now are feeling confident that they can bypass most of the security layers that are currently placed in your network. And believe me, this is not a mistake of your security department or your security administration. This is just what the market was offering the solutions to take care of current and known attacks. Now we're moving to a new era where attacks are unknown. Our attacks are polymorphic. They change quite often, and they obfuscate themselves. And therefore, using a signature-based solution to tackle a signature-less attack, it's oxymoron. It does not work, right? And therefore, you have to think about new ways or new technology to be able to detect the unknown attacks. And we are very glad as FireEye to be able to provide such solutions that are able to simulate the unknown attack before it causes damage into your network. And we can simulate the attack from any attack vector. And this is another thing that the hackers, once they see that you have put a lock into your web access, means you're protecting your web traffic from any zero-day attack, they go and start attacking your email and start sending you phishing emails or attachments to an email that is also have a payload that can penetrate the network. If you put a lock into your email, then they can go and attack your file system. And nowadays we're seeing them attacking your mobile devices, because most of you are giving your employees mobile devices to be able to access the information into your network. And
Okay.
if they can hack the mobile device,
Mr. Ray, can we conclude?
yeah, if they can hack the mobile device to get to your network, then they can hack your information. So times has changed, and we will welcome the chance to explore this dynamic with you. And thank you very much for listening to me. Appreciate it.
شكرا جزيلا. I have lots of الحقيقة questions and discussion points with our distinguished speakers, لكن I will try to ask only a few questions and then I will open the floor for the audiences الحقيقة لأنه as Engineer Ahmed mentioned, we would like this session to be as interactive as the time allows. A question for you, Eric. What trends are you seeing in the United States to defend against the next generations of threats?
Great, thank you. So you heard today already that there's a number of well-publicized breaches in the United States, whether it's Sony Entertainment or Target or Home Depot. And then you also see a lot of mainstream news outlets talking about various vulnerabilities and bugs like Heartbleed and Shell Shock. So that actually helps because it does raise the exposure to the executive board level. And what we've seen now is a focus by the board to make sure that they're providing the right investment in these organizations. And what the organizations are doing is moving towards what we see as what we're calling continuous monitoring, where they're trying to have that cyber situational awareness so they identify who's on their network, what's on their network from a hardware and software standpoint, how their networks are configured, and then how vulnerable that network is, and monitoring that 24/7, so as soon as they identify a threat or a vulnerability, they can rapidly remediate and resolve that issue to try to stay ahead of that curve in the breaches.
Okay. The second question for Mr. Mamdouh. Given all the available solutions, hardware, software, and the cybersecurity, we still have attackers that are continuing to be successful. What's your intake on that, Mahmoud?
Okay. There is lots of focus on prevention for a long time. I think this is one of the prevention can prevent you with things that really know already, as my Rafti said, but advancement in the technology and the investment that been in prevention maybe is not really well spent. Maybe there should be a balance between spending in the prevention and detection too. Very important, as Raf really mentioned, is the, what they call it, the cyber kill chain. I mean, we should really understand how those guys are really thinking in order actually to counter what they really do. They go into stages to attack into a site. One of them actually finding out, exploring, then exploiting, then probably installing, having the payload, log into that malicious software and getting the information and stay there for some time even. If we really understand that one very well, maybe that will help actually the companies that are actually working on the software to actually counter that, to actually have a better mechanism to actually counter every stage of these stages, that because he can, no network is actually 100% perfect. So they might actually pass from the first stage. So if you are really focusing only on actually protecting from the outside and not protecting the inside, the hackers who managed to get the first layer, he will be inside doing something else that you're not really aware of. More also that is that we have business continuity management programs, as you mentioned, Engineer Ahmed. It's extremely, extremely important that to be actually include threats that comes from cyber inside it. That will actually make the organization prepared. In Saudi Arabia, for example, only the CMA or the actually force the capital companies and banks to have the business continuity programs. However, it got to be really a practice, okay, within the companies to have this one there in case of such threats is really happening, that you got to be ready for that.
Okay. All right. Mr. Ray, I heard you saying in your speech that signature-based security solutions are not appropriate for the next generation threats. Yes. Then what will be the best approach, in your opinion?
Well, the approach that actually we have, or FireEye has adopted, is something called virtual execution engine, or providing some sort of a technology to be able to detect traffic that comes across your internet into your network perimeter that is questionable, and be able to take that traffic and simulate it inside the solution against any attack that could happen. So basically being a proactive technology, simulating the attack before it can cause the damage and inflict any negative impact into your network. So, and it's important that that technology should be signature-less, because the attack does not have a signature, and therefore, if you can do like a simulation chamber technologies, that is really the future of cybersecurity these days.
All right. Back to you, Eric. طبعا we hear about threat intelligence now as a mean to be integrated within the cybersecurity programs. What would you advise in this area?
Sure, and it really does follow on to the kill chain discussion, where having good cyber threat intelligence gives you that perspective, both what the adversary is doing, what they're targeting, why they're targeting, and if they are successful, provide you with some attribution as to what's going on. So one of the things that we've seen our customers heavily invest in is integrating cyber threat intelligence predominantly within their security operations center. And the reason they do that is the cyber threat intelligence analysts will understand the environment that they're working in, so they know what threats are valid to their environment. So if they're running a Microsoft shop, they know that only Microsoft-related vulnerabilities and attack vectors are relevant to them. They also have the ability to rapidly deploy indications of compromise, so they can search throughout the environment for successful attacks that might be on the environment, as well as provide threat briefings and provide that ongoing awareness, so the defense analysts can be aware of the latest and greatest methodologies and tactics that are being deployed. So when they see something that looks suspicious, they can immediately investigate and hopefully prevent successful attack from happening. So being able to integrate it into your security operations is helpful, so you can provide that comprehensive security visibility.
Mr. Ray, would you like also to comment on
Yes,
this issue?
It's always important to know that behind every cyber attack, there is a human element in it. There is a human organization that is launching the attack. And equally important, as well as getting the information on the attack itself to prevent it, you still need intelligence to know what is the motive and who is the attacker to be able to get a complete, comprehensive solution to the attack. So not only prevention from a technology point of view, but you need to have threat intelligence on the attack crime groups to be able to give you a holistic solution for the whole problem.
Okay. Mr. ممدوح, الحقيقة cloud طبعا cloud computing, cloud services is becoming a trend, and I'm sure that many of our audience today are going in that direction. It provides many الحقيقة advantages that we all know. From the other side, from the security side, cloud services have many constraints, and I know that within this region, we are still hesitant to go full cloud because of some security constraints. What do you say about that, and how do we, from one side, utilize the full advantage of cloud services, but keeping in mind the security protection and constraints?
Okay. Hesitant is the word, actually. The security and privacy reasons were the main thing that people in the region actually were really worried to go to the cloud. What's about our data? Who's going to really attack it? But if you really decide and to have your use the services on the cloud, you get actually to go ahead and analyze and assess your requirements and what you really need. Okay, how about your data how confidential is your data? About disaster recovery, about reliability of the vendor itself. Sometimes, especially if they have the service on the cloud, sometimes not the guy that you're buying the service from is the guy who's actually securing that thing. So actually, he might really contracting, outsourcing the whole security to someone else. So the due diligence go further. The contracting in general of cloud services is extremely tricky, okay? And you get to go and really dive deep into it in order to understand it. It's also, once you buy service in the cloud, sometimes people get really complacent, okay? It's not my problem anymore, okay? So it is someone else's problem. So if you're buying a service from outside, it must be safe. It's not the case, okay? You get to really do your homework, you get to do lots of work, and sometimes, and we have done it actually in my organization, you hire a consultant to go ahead and give you a feedback, okay, about how secure and how appropriate this service provider for your business and how actually can really secure your information. We should really understand that the whole cloud computing is still immature. Okay, so there is no quick fix for security. It will take some time for such service to mature and to be able to actually to address the security issues that we are all worried about. Thank you.
Okay, I think I will actually pose the same question to our respected audience here. What is your intake in cloud security? Do you think that there is an issue with cloud security? And if there is, what will be the best approach to deal with that security issues? If anybody would like to share his opinion, he's most welcome, or experience. Hi, Shabab. There's no experience? تفضل. Can we have the mic here? Is there a mic, Shabab?
It was a part of the plan. Shoot.
If you can just raise your voice a little bit.
My name is Khalid Amar. I'm representing Abdulatif Jamil Group, financial group, Abdulatif Jamil.
If you can just use the mic, please, so that everybody will hear you.
Khalid Omar, Abdulatif Jamil, United Finance Group. Actually, for the cloud, we tried to implement, I will say, the hybrid cloud. I mean, the private and the public cloud in our organization. However, the main problem it was with compliance. We are regulated by SAMA, and the main concern is the compliance. Privacy, confidentiality, and security of the information is the most important part when we are going to think of implementing such a solution. So, as you just mentioned before, that the problem is still for the regulators. I think it is worldwide, or it's not only here. It's not yet mature, and the main issue is the privacy of the information, the customer information.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
I think I agree with you completely. One of the things that we've seen, and it ties into your point of you need to ask the vendor, whether it's a private cloud provider or public cloud provider, okay, where's the data stored? And if you have an unauthorized data leak, how do you sanitize the environment? And most of the cloud providers I've talked to said, well, we don't know. It's replicated across multiple servers, and over time it will be overwritten. Well, in most cases, that's not sufficient for customers to know that, okay, if there was an inadvertent leak of private information, I want 100% confidence that it will be overwritten in a timely manner, and they can't provide that, which is a challenge. Same when you have an incident, how do you collect data from an incident response standpoint? And the answer that we get back is, well, we'd have to work on that. And that's usually not a comfortable answer when you're trying to put together an incident response plan when you have assets within a cloud.
Especially with a regulator.
Yes.
Exactly.
They will not accept
No question, absolutely.
an answer like
Just one thing to what Eric said, excuse me, just, you're right. I mean, in the past, when you buy a cloud service, we actually asking the provider to give us the jurisdiction of that Europe.
Yeah.
Now we have no control. He said, no. Okay, guys, you give us data, it is secure, whatever you put it, this is the way it goes. So we have less and less control, to be frank.
Good. I've seen a raised hand there in the back. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much for the very informative by the audience. Majid Shigati from Ma'adin. We looked at the cloud. We cannot generalize the maturity, the way that we look at it. It's the question now is, what are we trying to put on the cloud? That's the first question that need to be asked. Cloud is available. You cannot compare the cost, the speed of deployment, the availability of the pre-configured business processes, as what indicated by Mr. Mamdouh, gives a pressure from the top management, go and get the technologies in order to facilitate the business. The question that from the due diligence that we done to a number of solutions that we looked at it back in Ma'adin goes back to what are we trying to put on the cloud? And even if the cloud get mature, it is the agreement that you need to build between you and the service provider of the cloud and what is the jurisdictions that you need to go back? What if it break? That's the question that need to be always asked about the worst case scenario. The good case, the good scenario is it will get working. But the worst case scenario, that's the questions that need to be asked during your evaluation. That's from the experience that we've done. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. شكرا لك. Engineer Ahmed, تفضل.
Just a quick statement regarding the confidence that we can build into the cloud. One component is to preserve privacy and to preserve accuracy of the information. I mean, response time cannot be guaranteed 100% because of the diversity of the technologies used and the propagation delay in the information. However, for privacy component, if the information is encrypted in transit and encrypted at the repository where it is sitting, then your heart is supposed to be 50% at rest that your data is preserved. and no one, even the administrator of the cloud or the database server itself, would not be able to access your data if it is encrypted in transit and in its final destination. So that's one way to improve the confidence in cloud services. And I hope that very soon we will see much higher, mature cloud services in the country and in the region.
طيب. One last comment there.
Ali Al-Jabra, Vice President of Astra Industrial Group. What I would like to speak here that we have in a few years ago went into a private cloud by total outsourcing of our SAP and Microsoft DC and DR. However, thinking of cloud today, which we think it's going to be something that everybody will go for in a few years, the risk that the regulations and the protections that should be surrounded from the government itself before the companies. If we remember insurance a few years ago, we all insure with the insurance company, and the moment there is a fire or a big an accident, this company disappeared until the government stepped in and they put a tough regulations on this insurance company in order we ensure that we really insures of our assets. Same thing need to happen with the cloud. Those companies that offering a cloud, in my opinion, need to come and set up a strong company here in the regions. They have to have some sort of protections with the governments for these companies. Then I will feel as a private company secure to put my data with them. At least tomorrow when they are bankrupt, at least there is something I can bring it back and I can make company continue.
شكرا بارك الله فيك. Okay, so and I have الحقيقة many questions here, but I would stop asking and I would leave the floor open it to you. And if you have any opinions or questions for our panelists here, please feel free to ask. Raise your hand so we can see you and identify yourself, please. تفضل.
Thank you very much for providing me the opportunity to give my opinion about that. I am Dr. Haider Abbas. I work as a research scientist at Center of Excellence Information Assurance at King Saud University. I have a question for Mr. Ray that you mentioned for the legacy solutions of the next generation attacks is the kind of FireEye is going to propose some kind of novel solution in terms that some kind of virtual engine that will capture the traffic, right? And you will analyze this proactively. So my concern is if you are going to do it in a live manner, then there will be the question of efficiency, right? If whole of the traffic has been captured, then and you're going to analyze that traffic live in, you can say, in a timely manner, it will be the question of efficiency to the workflow, it will affect the workflow, right? And if it is an offline kind of analysis going on into this virtual engine, then it will have no use because the attack has been already materialized as other technology is doing with this, right? So where you place this problem of capturing the abnormal traffic, capturing live or offline?
Okay, good question. So it's important to understand that we do not capture every traffic that comes across your border perimeter traffic. We only capture the suspected traffic, any chance of any traffic coming from a website or an email traffic that has the slight possibility of having a zero-day vulnerability within it. We capture that so this is the first phase of our detection mechanism, to lower your false negatives. Lower your false negatives means I don't want any chance of any traffic that has an exploit to pass without me capturing it. So I capture that. This is phase one. Then phase two is we take that traffic and we push it into our virtual execution engine. Once it's there, it is triggered against the application that it is targeting inside the appliance, and therefore phase 2 will lower your false positives, which means the combination of the two phases, and this is the technology that we have invented, will enable you to not only capture the suspected traffic, but ensure that that traffic is suspected. And because we don't capture all the traffic, there is no impact, or there's a very minimal impact on efficiency and performance of the appliance. And yes, we do deploy it inline as well as offline. In inline, you can monitor and block, but in offline, you only can alert to the attack.
So can I add a small comment quickly on this one? Just as per Gartner, zero attacks in general, zero-day attacks, which means the attacks for where that has no signature, is not known, is actually a smaller percentage of the whole attacks. So just for the audience here, just maybe patching is what you have. Most of the attacks coming for patches that being deployed and never been implemented within the organizations. So this is actually the more of the worry and risk happening for the organization. Zero attacks might be very serious, you're right, but most of the attacks in general are coming from things that already have signatures, but the guys or the IT department to security did not apply the patches already.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment, opinion, or question? Fadal.
Before this question, this perhaps is the last question for the session as we're running late in time.
Okay. Dr. Fahad Al-Damer. I have a question for Eric. You mentioned the cyber range, and you mentioned the cyber range, and as I hear the speakers, we were talking about attack from outside, and also some experience, some incident. The last incident was from inside the organization. In the cyber range, can you elaborate? Is it, I understand it for training, but also does it attach to the system itself?
Great question. So one of the things that we've seen as one of the challenges with any organization is trying to figure out how to integrate new cyber defense technologies in their environment. Oftentimes it's very complex. There's different configurations you need to try before you can successfully integrate the technologies together. So one of the things that our customers have asked us to do that we support through the cyber range is build an environment that emulates what they have, down to the IP address, the network configurations, and that gives them an environment where they can test new configurations, they can test new hardware and software, they can have an opportunity to integrate that in and make sure it's successful before they deploy it to a production environment. And on the training side, you also now have a training environment where you can have your IT professionals, your security professionals operate in an environment with the tools, the IP addresses, and the infrastructure that they would see in daily life. However, it's a lab, so you can launch Iranian attacks, Russian attacks, Chinese attacks, any type of attacks you want with the same tools that the adversary would use, and it would not damage their production environment.
May I comment on this? Just sometimes we divide or we separate the outside attack from an inside attack. But really, if you think of it, it's all related. Most notably, an inside attacker is as a result of an attack or a breach that came from outside. Because if somebody breached some of your desktop into your network, they now have that desktop remotely controlled from outside. And they can have that desktop launch an attack without the user knowing about it. And this is what you might call an inside attack. An inside attack happens as a result of a breach comes from outside, taking control of your desktop, and that desktop becomes one of the botnets that the hacker use and use that desktop to launch attacks into your organization and outside, basically.
طيب يا اخوان, just to respect your time, الحقيقة we are out of time. And therefore, we would like to thank our distinguished speakers for their very valuable viewpoints. And thank you also for participation. Please join me in thanking our speakers. Shukran.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for the excellent and informative panel discussion. And appreciate the effort and the experience shared. For our audience, we will be breaking right now. We have 4 things that need to be achieved from now until 12:30. Number 1, if you have an appointment associated with any one of the people outside, please go ahead and take care of that, utilize the time. Number 2, it is a golden opportunity for you to understand and learn from each other. There is nothing more valuable in life than knowing people, because whatever these people know is a cream that you can always just harvest and utilize immediately. So networking is a very important part of what we do today, not only meeting the vendors and the system integrators and the resellers, but also an opportunity to meet each other. The third component is go ahead and visit the different stands of the sponsors of this event. And the fourth component is the Dhuhr prayer is 12:06. So we have plenty of time to pray Dhuhr before we come back. But I wish that I will see all of you, inshallah, at 12:30 sharp back here, because we'll be starting another group of knowledge transfer in the IT security and the cybersecurity domain. Thank you very much.